release print when I'm done. What I'm going to do now with every film that I have is I'm going to take the work print. I don't cut it or alter it. I use it for one purpose only, which is to take the print, transfer it to video, so that I can go into an ADR studio and dub it into English. I'm going to take this print that I make for one pass on the telecine for, and I'm going to subtitle that version. I'm going to subtitle every film that I have for two reasons. I'm going to open up the film in Japanese markets around the United States, in Japanese theaters, in Japanese, with subtitling, so I can have a theatrical venue for that Japanese film. And then I'm going to take that film, and I'm going to eventually take the, before I start releasing it, I'm going to transfer it to film, to video, and have a quote-unquote connoisseur series. Now, if you ever get an opportunity to buy the rights to a theatrical feature film, you have two options. One is, you can try to subtitle it with as many lines as you can, as far across the screen as you can on an optical level to get your thoughts down. And then when you go to video, you'll have that thing there. But see, what you primarily do is a video release.
That's right.
Which is a very, very, very specific thing. And if all you ever want to do is video releases, that kind of a philosophy works. But then if you're going to put a film out theatrically, would you do that 2-line, 34 characters, and then when you do your video version, have the new and expanded, the unexpurgated script? I mean, is it worth it?
I think they're very different. I think film and theater and video are very different. And I actually would, considering it so inexpensive to do a special video version, I would probably do it differently, yes. I really would.
But then don't you think at a certain point it becomes so, and again, no offense, it's like it becomes anal retentive to the point that it's like...
Well, you're making a very valid point. And what I'm trying to express is that if you and I, you did for the video, you did for the theatrical film, and I did it for the video, I would say that 90% to 95% of our titles would be the same length. It would only be in a certain few places that we might differ. Okay, where I might be wordier than you are. Really, I mean, most of my 90 to 95% of my titles in my stuff are 2 lines, 34 characters or less. They really are. It's only in a few places where I couldn't, where we literally did it both ways, but the timing considerations or the framing considerations or just the complexity of the thought, the importance of the thought, caused us to break the rules, that we broke the rules. Okay? And, it's, like I say, about 95% of the time, we probably pretty close.
During the panel is involved not only as an entrepreneur, but also bringing out a form of art. Since you'll be dealing with the producers, the manufacturers, have you considered approaching the artists and saying, can you make the scene a little bit longer? Because you know that you have Japanese, we have English. When you go through the translation, I don't have a word for this meaning.
No, you're absolutely correct, and that's the funniest thing.
Yes,
I'll tell you something.
Everything.
If you watch television animation, and it could be OVAs or a television series, with the exception of Nadia, everything that's done in Japan is done with 3 mouth movements. Okay, that's it. There's this, and this, and that's it. So now, as an American, and you're trying to talk, there's a philosophy of understanding phonics, fricatives, plosives, glottal sounds that you cannot get with this, and that. There's just 3, closed, half open, and open, and that's it. And if you know animation and how it's produced, and how the Japanese produce animation, they'll take a scene that maybe is 5 seconds long, okay? And then in 5 seconds, they will make that scene with 8 drawings. Blows your mind. 8 drawings for 5 seconds. If you know anything about animation, it's 24 frames a second, okay? 24 frames a second, and you have 5 seconds, that's 100 frames. So they did it with 8 drawings. How did they do it? Well, they know the guy's talking, and he's going, okay, here's 1, 2, 3, 3, 2, 1, 1, 1, 2, 3, and they just cycle those 8 drawings for the course of 5 seconds. Why? Because that's all the money that X studio has to produce a film. They say, we're going to do a film, and we want here's our budget. They said, I can't give you that. I'm going to give you $50,000 for your budget. No, I can't make the program. You want to make the cartoon? $50,000. And that's what they have to do. Akira cost $7.5 million to produce. It's a 2-hour, 4-minute movie. Every dollar is put on the screen. That's what the Japanese make films. I'm working on this film, Old Man Z. Okay, that film, almost the same length, 1/7 the budget. Okay, same designer, Kita Kubo, excellent director from Gainax, magnificent production values, unbelievable that they did it for the price they did it for. Blows your mind. Why? Because they're smart. They know how to play the game. That's the problem. If you had full animation like Totoro, Miyazaki stuff, totally full animation, you can make the people talk. If you have Zillion, for example, there's like 5,000 cells for a half an hour. To make those people talk and have it be anywhere competent, it's really kind of a weird deal. And you can't tell the producers how to do their stuff. What do you say? Okay, here you go. Here's another 50 grand.
Give me fricatives.
You know. And it doesn't work. You can't. There's all the limitations of this medium, and you have to deal with it.
But they know it's going to the American market.
No, they don't.
No, they don't care. They don't care that it's going to the American market. The guys from Gainax are here that did Nadia. Right? They did it. They're the guys that drew it. They don't know that it was even sold.
It's true. Well, they did find out.
They found out.
No, it's true.
You already know what that story is. I'm not going to repeat it.
We had the same experience with Gunbuster Part 1, where it was sold to us by the copyright holder, and we found out 6 months later no one from Gainax even knew. And this is part of what is the relationship in Japan between the companies like Bandai and the studios that actually produce the animation. The artists aren't, put on a pedestal and, oh yeah, can we have your permission to do this, this, and this? That's not the way it works. But the companies that are funding the projects sell the rights, and oftentimes the artists, like the other day, Mr. Ano came into the dealer's room and I gave him Gunbuster 1 and 2, and he had no idea that they had been dubbed for the United States, was stunned when I handed them that to him. So, yeah, no, actually, I think he thought it was pretty cool, but they just don't know, because they aren't informed on their end. They're the last to know. And it's the same thing with Carl and Nadia, and I had heard that, and it didn't surprise me at all. It's a common thing. They are not given, and you can ask them because they're here, but they are not given the type of situation. Yeah, they really don't. Once they make it, that's it.
The funniest thing is, your first instinct is to go to Gainax to get Nadia.
Right.
That's my first instinct. Then I'm a fax. No response.
Exactly.
They
we went through the same thing.
The Antichrist.
Yes, Carl, they do.
No response.
In fact, they have your name above the fax machine. Any fax from this guy.
They don't believe in the Antichrist. The anti-Buddha.
You get nowhere and you sit there. And the only reason I got Nadia, and I'll tell you this, it's really bizarre. I was in the Toho offices, and I'm sitting there, and I'm trying to negotiate for this film, Gunbuster, because Viz Communications wanted us to take Gunbuster, which is not Gunbuster,
Gunbuster.
Sorry, it's live action. They wanted us to put it out in English. So we cooperated. We went there. We were talking to them about Gunhead. And I'm sitting there in the office waiting for this guy on the phone, and I look over on his desk, and there's a magnificent flyer for Nadia. And I said, do you have this? He says, oh yeah, we have the international rights to this thing around the world. I said, well, I took the gunhead thing, I put it in my brief, I said, I'll just buy that. Let's just leave it at that. Forget about it. And that is that simple. It's in there. I said, this is my deal. Sent it to Japan. They changed a few things, sent it back. I changed a few things, sent it back. 2 days, we had a deal. That was it. That's how simple it is. No one that got it.
About what time was this, Carl? What time frame was it?
What do you mean?
Like, what period of time, how long ago did this particular transaction take place?
I would say May.
Okay, yeah, because you see, what Carl didn't know was about that time, I was in Japan talking to Sogovision, who helped produce this thing with NHK, and I was trying to get Nadia. In fact, Sogovision was asking, like, well, would you like to subtitle the entire series so we can show it on an NHK satellite? And so I was in negotiations with them about doing all sorts of things with Nadia. And it looked like we were going to get a deal together. And then all of a sudden, I get a fax from the guys at Sogovision saying, oops, we just found out that the rights got sold.
And what Robert doesn't know about that time. For U.S. rendition.
But what U.S. rendition doesn't know is before that time,
what John doesn't know.
is that before that time, you see, the whole reason Writing Bean got done by us is that Gynax, in one trip, introduced me to Umex and to my future wife. So I went big, and I got to do Writing Bean as sort of a audition for the chance to do Bubblegum Crisis. And the rights to Bubblegum Crisis were being held by this company called Gaga. Goo Goo Gaga is more like it. And they had been sold to a guy in the U.S., and all this guy in the U.S. had to do to get the rights, and I literally found out this story from him.
Yeah, this is a true story.
Okay, all he had to do to get the rights was to give them a check, okay, for his advance, and he kept, like, forgetting to do it. By the time he apparently decided to send a check, Gaga was out of business. So he had nobody to send a check to.
This goes back. It was sold by Gaga as Futurescape, and a company who shall remain nameless had the entire series handed to them on a platter for the whopping sum of $5,000 in advance. All American theatrical, non-theatrical television, video rights, etc. And our company, our parent company, negotiated that contract for him.
Can't you negotiate contracts like that from me?
Well, in the future, absolutely. But his particular president, who ran a very large and successful independent film company, decided that there's no need to ever, send a check, because they sent a check whenever the other company really started to scream for it, which was their normal way of doing business, which is why that particular company is no longer in business. So it's a long-winded way of saying that it's not quite as easy as going to a store and saying, I'll take that, here, let's sign up the rights. Some of these things can literally drag on for years in order to obtain rights. Some of the things, even once you have a contract, you'll find out that other people don't respect that contract because they also have contracts with other people for the same thing. Sometimes when you have a contract, you don't get the materials. Sometimes you get the materials and you never get a contract.
Oh yeah, it's really bizarre. The thing that really surprises me the most about this entire industry is that there are three things that you have to understand about the way people do business at an international level with film, is that nobody cares whether a fan gets a videotape. They don't care. What they want is the most money possible that they can get up front before anything is released. That's the first thought. The second thought is, where are you going to produce your final product? What are you going to do with it? For us, I buy all rights. I buy theatrical, I buy broadcast, I buy home video, and I buy licensing rights. Now, it's very costly to do that. But if I just wanted the home video rights, they could never... Say I bought the home video rights to Gunbuster. Or not a movie, Akira. I just got the home video rights to Akira. That's all I want to do. I want the home video rights to Akira. They would never sell it to me because they realize that if I put it on a home video before it goes out to a theater, they'll lose a lot of money because it's not going to happen. And that's the problem with Totoro and Kiki's Delivery Service and even the Grave of the Fireflies and Arion and all this stuff from Tokuma. They want big bucks. That's the problem with Venus Wars. Okay? I'd like to bring Venus Wars into the United States. You know how much it costs to get Venus Wars according to the distributor in the United States? Think about it. $150,000 just to get the rest of the Venus Wars out of the United States. It's not worth $150,000, but then have to spend another $75,000 to dub it, and then spend another $50 to $75 to make the print and market it, that's $250,000 you have to spend to put it in the theater that it will not generate back. And even if you put it on home video, you won't generate that money. And I've been trying to go around every conceivable way to get people. It's very, very, very difficult. And those are the kind of things that the fans, it's a very hard thing to do. Nadia was easy and lucky. Most other things are not easy and lucky. And hopefully, when I'm done with Nadia, I'm not going to be the Antichrist Part 2. I think it'll come out in a way that I think everyone will be happy. And because we do want to get it on television. And I'll tell you the one thing. You want Japanese animation to be popular again, it's got to go on television. It has to go on television.
It's true.
And if it doesn't go on television, forget it. Because the amount of people that have seen Akira might be 50,000 people. That's it, that have seen it in a theater. The amount of people that will see Nadia if it's on television will be 2 or 3 million.
No, I think it could be a really big breakthrough.
That's the key.
That's why I wanted it.
But you couldn't put it on television subtitles. It
No, it would have to be exactly.
What are you saying? Yeah, I got the contract now. Here's a few $1,000.
When you subtitle and then you show them what you've done, when you dub it, you show them the end, right? And then they say yay or nay. And
well, the technology is very simple. I record on 24-track tape, the voices. And I mix back down to a 24-track tape also with music effects and voices. Then I do a thing called a print master, which is a 4-stripe thing. Music on one track, effects on one track, dialogue on one track. That's what I show the Japanese. I show them that 4-stripe, 2-picture. We go into a theater just like this, with a big screen, and we sit in the room and we run it. We take notes. We don't like this voice, it's too low, it's too high, it's not right. We change it. We can change it at that level because nothing is committed to film. Once the print master is approved, then you have to do a thing called an optical negative, which means that I take that soundtrack and I compress it down to one little squiggle of light that goes on a piece of film. That optical negative then is the final thing. Once you have an optical negative, that's it. Unless you want to go back, reprint master, and re-optical negative. That's about a $10,000 or $12,000 process. So at the point that you do your optical negative for a film, you got to be damn well sure that that's what it's going to be. Many times I have screwed myself because I believe the technicians that are saying, that this will be fine, because there's a certain thing called a dB range. You have a 40 dB range for an optical negative, and that's all you have. You have 40 dB. That's high and low. And if you can get it right within 40 dB, your entire audio recording, everything will be heard when it's transferred to a film track. If you don't do that, you're going to lose the highs and the lows, which happened on Lensman, it happened on a few other things. Fortunately for me, I kept the 4-track. So when I put it on video, screw the optical negative, I'm just going to tell it, send you the picture, I'm going to go back to my stereo 4-track, lay that back onto the 1-inch video because it's going to be in stereo with all the dB range completely in there, full, and in Dolby. It happened on Robot Carnival because it was done in Japan. Because I told them that they didn't want to pay for Dolby. It was $7,000 extra to use the Dolby logo. So instead of doing it in Dolby stereo, they did it in mono. It blows my mind. The whole thing is mono. When it goes out on video, it's going to be stereo. It was recorded in, Dolby A stereo. When it goes on video, it'll be in stereo. It's weird little things like that that blow your mind. And it makes you realize that, what can you do? Because once it's there, it's committed, it's done. And if I had, all the money in the world, I'd go back and fix these things. But you can't. But the Japanese do see it. They saw Totoro, they saw Kiki, they saw Lensman. They're going to go see Fist of the North Star next week. We're going to have our first screening of Fist of the North Star next week. And hopefully, everything will be fine.
Yeah, after a while, it's starting to sink in Japan that there are some people out around here that are for real. Used to be, I'd go to Tokyo for 2 weeks and everybody would hide. They said, 2 weeks, Woodhead's coming to town, okay, we'll go on vacation for 2 weeks, let's go to Taiwan, Now I'm living there, they can't get away from me. But it's getting a little better. I mean, getting bubblegum, as soon as I got Bubblegum Crisis and the faxes went around the industry, that I got Bubblegum Crisis and paid real money for it, I started getting phone calls. It was really pretty amazing. I mean, 2 weeks later, I had Bubblegum Crash. just, they wouldn't even talk to me before that. Yeah, questions? Yeah.
Yeah, I've got two comments, primarily directed to David, although I'm sure he's a cool guy and didn't mean that. One, when you say that you've got localized so that the guy sounds Japanese in Akira, or there was another film where you said, someone's got to sound their nationality. Now that might be taken as offensive because in the Japanese releases, everybody speaks Japanese,
Right.
and they may have the occasional slang or term that's not easily put into Japanese
Right.
in the film. So, for example, if you've got some Japanese guy there, but it is, in the future, for example, where we internationalize more, wouldn't it be more appropriate for them to speak clear, normal English with the occasional Japanese slang or the occasional thing
Right.
that's not fit into English?
That's what I was trying to say. Totally didn't mean to offend. In other words, what I'm trying to say, if you allow me to use some slang, then I'm totally down with what you're saying. but what I'm trying to say is that these films were created, like Akira was created with Japanese king characters, Kaneda and Tetsuo. When I mean that they should sound Japanese, I mean that they should be represented as they are on the screen. So if they're using, sometimes they're using inflections, or if they're using, of course, I mean that they would use clear English, not stereotype sounding at all, not long. It's kind of a touchy issue, you know what I mean? But what I'm basically trying to say is that those characters are presented as realistically and as authentically as Otomo intended.
For example, all that I personally look for is that if you name a Japanese city, like, I don't know, Hiroshima, for example, that you say Hiroshima and not Hiroshima, which is often said.
Right.
Yeah. And if you have an American character in Neo Tokyo, they could mispronounce it as Hiroshima because they're more American.
Right. Well,
and that would be acceptable.
Okay, here's my problem. Okay, let's say, for example, let's say if the character's name is Kaneda, right? I guess that's the correct way to pronounce it. I hope it's Kaneda. Okay, Kaneda, right? I know it's something, but if somebody calls him like Canada, that's wrong, right? I mean, that's what I'm saying. It's like those sorts of problems.
That's just paying attention to what the intent was.
May I point out one little thing to you? I mean, it's possible to speak perfectly correct and perfectly clear English, but even with your eyes closed, you can recognize that the speaker is Japanese. Or, for example, when I listen to you, if I was listening to you over the phone, even though your English is perfect and clear and totally colloquial, I mean, it's clear that you're black. I mean, just as when you listen to me, it's clear that I'm probably out in the North Atlantic somewhere, since I grew up in England, Canada, and the U.S. Okay? So it's perfect. You can get Japanese Americans who have that Japanese lilt
Right,
to their
it's an
speech.
inflection.
But what we're trying to avoid here is anybody that sounds like the 1940s.
Exactly.
Or the anti-Asian films that were shown here.
Right.
No, I agree. That's not going to happen, but,
Well,
I'm just as sensitive to that belief.
Yeah, let's maintain your sensitivity to that. The second point, which is more general, is when you refer to the Japanese one, you should be more specific. A lot of Japanese bashing refer to, the Japanese want this. And that doesn't help anybody. You should refer to which Japanese companies you're talking about.
Who, me? Yeah.
In your general discussions, when you say, well, we want this, but the Japanese wanted that.
Oh, I don't think I've ever said that.
You didn't say it, actually. It was one of the people.
Yeah, in fact, I think I said it. But when I say that, I don't, mean the Japanese as a nationality. I'm referring to the specific people we deal with. And I've worked for a Japanese company for 4 years, and they often refer to us as the Americans. And it's not anything that's meant to be derogatory. It's just simply, when I mean specifically, I'm saying the Japanese individuals at Bondi who made the agreement with us to work on Gunbuster. I mean, we're all, believe me, we've all, are sensitive to, the problems that are occurring between Japan and the United States in terms of the trade imbalance, and
we're trying to make it work.
Yeah, and basically we're out to make it work. So, no, I mean, all I can speak of it for our company is it's a unique group of people, David and myself, and we have the majority of the staff is Japanese, and we all work together and understand that there are differences, but it's never presented itself as a major problem. So we're certainly hypersensitive to that.
Yes, you've been waiting a long time.
You've all made it your goal to get the Japanese animation part of American mass media. The current trend for, say, our American Saturday morning cartoons seems to be towards cutesy characters with non-violence. Not kind of the Ninja Turtles. I'm talking Smurfs and.
Well, I personally think the Smurfs should be hung from the nearest tree.
Well, no.
That's my question. Have any of you come across problems with American groups coming out and saying, no, you try to release this, we'll try and censor you?
Well, yeah, definitely.
I don't think that
And you
any
see
of
that
these
being
people,
more of a problem.
I don't think that any of these people can answer that question because they're not into that broadcast reality. I mean, I can answer it very easily. If you've ever seen Robotech,
Yes.
Robotech was put on before anyone knew anything about what was happening. And it was done in an environment and created in an environment of complete isolation on my part. I did 85 episodes of an animated television series. Whether you like what I did or not, it was revolutionary in terms of what it presented to American television audiences. And it was done, and the only reason it was done was because it was in a total void from the corporate body that I worked for at the time. They knew nothing about what was being done. They paid me a minimal amount of money. I did this. I didn't need the money because I had income, so I wasn't doing it to support myself. I just did it because I wanted to see if this could be done. I knew the guidelines that I had to deal with, and I made something. It was violent. It was bizarre. It was controversial. It had adult themes. Even though a lot of people say I've ruined the original Japanese stories, the consequence there was never anything like that on television previously in the United States, and there will never be anything on broadcast television similar to that.
For the record, I did love it.
Oh, thanks. For the record, it was an interesting thing, but it took us 4 months to do it. So that was 4 months of my life, and I've been like, the stigma of this for like the last 6 years. That was completely done as a ruse. It was a ruse. No one knew what I was doing, and I can tell you the classic example. The first time Robotech was ever on television anywhere in the United States was in Los Angeles, KCOP Channel 13, and it started. They sold it for $500 an episode too, just to get it on the air. It was the most low-budget cheeseball thing you could possibly imagine. They just wanted to get it on television. And the very first thing they said, they gave the station one thing for free, which was a special, a Robotech special. I don't know if anybody saw it. It was like this. Code name was like a 90-minute thing. It was kind of a compilation of stuff just to get people excited about Robotech, theoretically. And at Harmony Gold, no one knew what it was. And we had a party. And everybody at Harmony Gold, about 35 people, were drinking champagne. And, you heard the announcer, now Robotech. And it started, and the music goes on, and all these names go on, Agrama, everyone's clapping, blah, 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 everyone's clapping. And then the story started. And they just kind of looked at it and turned around and walked away. They didn't know what it was. They didn't care what it was. All they wanted to see was their names on the air, and that was it. The people that were the PR guys never read the scripts. They never knew who the characters were. They didn't know who their hunter was. They didn't know what SDF-1 was. They thought it was a football play, And all of a sudden they started getting, it got on to 92 markets. 119 markets, which was 92% of all American households. It was drawing ratings higher than the nightly news. It was like unbelievably popular. And all of a sudden, somebody in Dallas, Texas, wrote them a letter. Your characters are smoking cigarettes and drinking alcohol. There is a man in your cartoon that dresses like a woman. There are sexual relationships being developed between a girl and her cousin. It is incest. Whoa! The big I word. Immediately pulled off the air in Dallas, pulled off the air in Salt Lake City, pulled off the air someplace else. Pull. It was in a matter of about 6 months from euphoria from the Harmony Gold guys. Oh, we're happy. We got something really great. They're like, what the hell did they do? They never saw it. They didn't know what it was. What happened from that point on, it was complete censorship for me. I had a 5-year contract from these guys. Complete and total censorship from my point of view. I became reclusive in my thinking, and then I was given the opportunity to do the Sentinels. They said, in the Sentinels you can do whatever you want, but just make it cool. And then when all that crap hit the fan, the Sentinels structure was pulled, I said, forget it. worked out the rest of my contract doing stuff like the magical world of Gigi and a bunch of stuff just to get it done and just to get out of there. And the thing that you'll realize is you won't see anything like Robotech on television, on broadcast television, because it's too parochial. It's too much the product of some old woman who thinks that she knows what's right for her children. And that's why it won't get on television. It'll get on cable, maybe. It'll get on Fox, maybe. But it won't get on any other place. Those are the two options, Fox and cable. If it doesn't get on Fox, if it doesn't get on cable, forget it. It'll never be on broadcast television, no matter what it is. And the reason that they like soft children's things is because it's easy to do. It's not threatening. It appeals to what the Americans think television audiences for animation are, juvenile. And it deals with it. I was involved with a production called Ren and Stimpy. Has anyone seen that? When I left Deke, I worked for Deke for a year. When I left Deke, I started Streamline Pictures and Spumco at the same time. They're two diverse things. I was the co-owner of Spumco with John Crispolucci and the co-owner of Streamline Pictures with Jerry Beck. At the point in time that we sold Ren and Stimpy, I had to make a decision. Do I stay with Chris Belushi and Ren and Stimpy, or do I stay with Beck and Streamline? Streamline was just at the point it was breaking. So I stayed with Jerry, and I gave John Spumco. The result is Ren and Stimpy, the most outrageous animated show you'll ever see on television. Watch it fast, because it may not be on much longer. It's 6 episodes. If you can see that, that is the level that you can deal with on broadcast. It's on Nickelodeon. And it plays every Sunday at 11 o'clock. Watch it before it's off the air. You will die. It's the most outrageous stuff you'll ever see in your life. Completely outrageous. It's not like Japanese animation, which is totally outrageous. And because something like that's on the air, I know that Nadia can get on the air, because compared to Ren and Stimpy, however funny it is, Nadia is a Rolls Royce compared to that. It's probably the best cartoon that can go on American television from Japan. And if Nadia gets on TV, you guys are going to be in pig heaven. I mean, you're going to have the opportunity of everything coming to you. You just have to be patient. You have to completely eliminate this bootleg crap. You got to stop all that stuff. You got to just wait and be patient and get the stuff corrected. Buy Robert stuff. Buy Riddick stuff. Buy the manga stuff. Just buy it.
If you like it.
Even if you don't like it.
Even if you don't like it.
You can't bitch about the price, because my stuff, Bubblegum Crisis, is coming out for less than Street Fighter. Bubblegum Crash stuff is going to come out at $34.95. That is 50% of the street price in Japan. Okay, I'm giving it to you for half price.
And it would be even lower if you did not support the massive piracy that is going on. The guy selling $25, color photocopies, covers, bootlegs of everything. And at this convention, this is actually the first convention I've actually had the guts to eject someone for bootlegging.
Not
really. That's the first one I've been at.
I was in Atlanta last year, and I blew everybody away that was bootlegging.
Yeah, but the one guy was bootlegging something from everyone up here, so that he covered the bases and he got the food. So I seriously recommend you do not support it, because you're hurting the industry overall and the chances of getting more stuff over here, and that's just the facts.
Yeah. Well, this year for the first time, through a little bit of politicking by one of the people I made on it, Ro Adams, the WorldCon committee finally promulgated a policy of no bootleg at WorldCon. Whether or not they are enforcing it this year, I don't know. I'll know when he gives me a call on Monday. But at least there's some progress, and I think that some of the people at this table, working with some of the groups, we're going to try and set together a set of guidelines that can help the convention committees sort of just not only promote what are appropriate policies, but also force them, because there's a lot of intimidation that goes on with the bootleg dealers. Basically say, I'll sue, you bastards.
And that is public domain. And it's public domain.
Yeah, right, like the Star Wars Christmas special, public domain, yeah, right.
Anyway, I'm all for degalsing.
Yeah.
We need something that's a
Use
long
violence,
distance dowsing gun, So we see this little red laser dot go over the title like. If somebody can invent one of those, I'll buy one.
Any other questions about this controversy?
I think it's sort of a con. Yeah, well, it's a controversy.
Question.
About
Okay, this is a poll we've been doing at every panel. How many of you here have Laserdisc players? And how many of you are from California? Keep your hands up. And how many of you are not from California and have Laserdisc players? And what was the other one? How many of you are sitting next to someone who's left-handed from California who has Laserdisc? No, actually, we've been getting a lot of questions, both John and I know you guys are doing Akira, right? Correct.
Oh yeah, no, just in case you didn't know, we are releasing Akira on Laserdisc.
Is that true?
And Lensman on Laserdisc through the Voyager company, their Criterion.
Yeah. And John is releasing
Dominion. We'll do Dominion as a 4-episode 2-disc set. We're doing Project ACO. We've got deals in place with Minhang and Channel. So our first 3 releases, all the deals have been done for Laserdisc. Just because of the timing, the disc won't be out until towards spring. I'd like to thank Robert Woodhead for starting a policy here. He announced yesterday that because of the concerns some people may have about buying a tape and then having the disc come out later, Robert announced a Animego policy, which we're happy to follow at U.S. Manga Corp, which says that if you're the registered buyer of his title, then when the disc comes out, they'll
upgrade at cost.
Upgrade at cost, which we think is a great idea, and is one we're happy.
Whatever it costs us to make that Laserdisc, you'll be at upgraded cost, and quite frankly, it'll probably work out so that if you bought the price of the Laserdisc had to come out just because of the economics. If you bought the Laserdisc, if you just bought the Laserdisc alone, the cost of buying the tapes and then paying for the upgrade would work out to be the same as buying the Laserdisc alone, so you get the tapes for free. We figure if you own Bubblegum Crisis or any of our titles, the media that you own it is irrelevant. We only want to profit off you once for your owning of a particular, the right to use a particular video.
You should sell that to Marvel.
Right. So
you're not going to have class.
So like if you're a Laserdisc groupies and you're saying, oh, but we don't want the tape, we want the Laserdisc. I mean, I am in serious negotiations now to do Bubblegum Crisis Laserdiscs. I really want to do them. It's just a matter of economics. The time will come. So don't hold off. Buy my tapes, give me money, and I'll get you the Laserdisc as soon as I can.
Yeah, on the U.S. rendition stuff, basically it's the same thing. Get the tapes now, and we're talking about we want to do Gunbusters, a 2-disc thing, but that's something that's just being talked about. We don't really have a deal yet, but it's definitely something we want to do.
What are you going to do? Are you going to send a little registration form in with everybody that has your tapes?
No, everybody who buys the tapes has a registration form in it. On that form, you can put down whether or not you have a Laserdisc player. When we do Laserdisc, everybody who returns the card who checked, I have a Laserdisc player, is going to get a little letter. You return the letter with the money, and we'll send you the Laserdiscs. Yes?
Will anyone on panel be doing live action?
Like Japanese?
Godzilla, stuff like that.
Yeah.
We're trying to do Gunhead. You know the problem is it's so expensive. And just to give you an insight, in order to start the Gunhead deal, I just put $10,000 in somebody's hand just to go in the door to talk to someone. $10,000 of my money up front, it's like an auction. Then in order to get the rights to Gunhead, I had to come up with another $150,000. Now this movie is, again, these films aren't worth that much money in reality. We all know this. I mean, they're interesting. That's why the bootleggers have a field day. Because they can buy a Laserdisc or something for $100 and go into business, and no one's going to stop them.
Right.
And that's the bullshit of this whole thing. Okay? For me, if I could just go in and say, look, I will take this and I will market it for you in the United States, and I will spend all my energy and efforts to do it, and I will give you 50% of everything that's made. That's cool. If that would happen, in Eden, that'd be great. But it doesn't work that way. See, everybody wants the cash. They want the cash. And regardless of how noble that idea to get the cash, what it's doing is it's promulgating bootlegging. There are probably a lot of movies that you'd like to be able to get legitimately on Laserdisc or whatever and sell in the United States rather than buy something that's meant to be sold for $39, having to buy it wholesale for $50 and then sell it for $100. That to me is bogus. And it should always be bogus to do something like that. You shouldn't have to have that restriction placed on you if you want to buy something. It's just the way of the world at this time, and no one is into fandom. No one wants to get them for a fan. Everybody wants to make their money and move on to make another film. Because it costs a lot of money to make these films. It just costs money. It costs a minimum of $300,000 to produce a half-an-hour of animation. It costs a minimum of, $500,000 or more to do a half-an-hour film. So
it's $1 million and a minute.
it's costly. It's very, very difficult. Anyway, be that as it may, yeah, I think about doing live action films all the time, but that is a very, very, very difficult medium to deal with at this point in time. And I think that there's more interest in animation than there is in live action.
It's more unusual. It's more unusual. It's more interesting. You can get more bang for your buck in terms of what you can do in animation than what you can do in live action. You can do for $2 million in animation what it just cost the guys at Corelco $93 million to do in Terminator 2.
Except that that movie will make 90 million times more than
That's true, but the entry cost is less to get up and running and do these things.
And you can get away with a lot more spending in terms of special effects.
That's right.
Cartoon characters don't come back to manage. That's me.
Well, some
the designers get it.
I mean,
Somebody gets it.
one advantage of the OAV animations, even with the prices I have to pay, I can go out and get a license and know that I'll break even selling 1,000 copies. If it's a nice film that I think should be in the States, and I think I can sell 1,000 copies, I can go and negotiate, and if I can get them to talk to me, I can get them to here, take my money, please. I can get that film, and I can come out without too much risk. Okay, and I think that going into Japanese live-action films, with some exceptions, very particular films. First of all, it's diluting the focus of my company, and second of all, it's incredibly much more risky. Because the Japanese don't have as much money to spend on film. That's why they do animation. It's cheaper. Which film? Which films?
Come on, Heaven and Earth, it was a $50 million film.
Yeah, but if you look at the average price of a Japanese live-action film, it's a fraction of what they spend in
No, I mean, I would stop talking on that line. Believe me, they just don't think that they do spend a lot. They spend more money than you have any idea on. Kodansha is making a movie about Fuga right now, and it's going to cost them like $100 million.
Those are the exceptions.
No, I mean they make a lot of. They spend money on movies just like anybody else. They invest in all sorts of movies. Now they're spending big bucks on movies that are not Japanese cultural films. Most films that are made in Japan are made for the Japanese market. I would say 99% of the films that are made in Japan are made for Japan. That's the way it goes. But Japanese investors, they bought the Universal. They bought the Columbia. All that Japanese money is going to make these movies, so that they have money to make movies. And pretty soon you're going to see movies that are going to be made on a global scale. They're going to be global in their import. Kurosawa's new movies starring Richard Gere. I mean, come on, give me a break. It's going to be. Nobody wants to see T-Hut of the August Moon, in fandom. Nobody wants to see that kind of stuff, a Japanese film made for Japanese market. If you're talking about Godzilla and Jackie Chan films and stuff like that, all those.
No, I'm talking about Japanese films that were made for the Japanese market. I mean, in terms of, on average, if you take all the films that are actually produced in Japan, I'd say that on average, they spend a lot less money than all the films produced in the U.S.
It's because the box office in Japan for domestically produced Japanese films is less. When last year the highest grossing Japanese film domestically was Kiki's Delivery Service, it kind of gives you an idea that film in Japan, which was domestically produced in Japan, made more money than anything. But that film was 100, or let's say 70, on the overall films that were released in Japan that made money. American films make more money released in Japan than Japanese films, hence there's no need to have high-budget Japanese films.
Well, exactly. I mean, that's all I was saying, Carl. Maybe it got lost in the translation. Yeah. I was actually thinking of bringing subtitles. was that one of the reasons most Japanese films, only very rare Japanese films make it over here, is because the films that are made for the Japanese market are generally the production values in them are lower than a lot of films that are made over here. And there are exceptions. And there are films that I would love to see. I love to see, for example, the Bakayaro series. They're hilarious films. I mean, I watched them when I didn't know very much Japanese, and I was rolling in the aisles. And that would be a perfect film to bring over subtitles. And Tempoko and Taxing Woman, that sort of thing. They make it, but there's a lot of other stuff out there that does okay in, like Oishi Kekkon or something like that.
But then at that same level, you might be a Japanese-American guy and you see Ernest Saves Christmas and you're rolling in the aisles watching that and you think, this is a funny film, that should go over to Japan.
Could you ever go the other way around, like transfer something in English or American for the Japanese market? Subtitled in English?
Yes.
Redub in Japanese.
No, subtitled in Japanese.
So subtitled in Japanese. Yes. How do they feel about that? I mean, they're really going for Western. They're going for the.
Here's a classic. See, one of the last jobs I did at Carnegie Gold was that they made a deal with a Japanese company to put in Touchstone pictures into Japan, and the first thing they had to do was Ruthless People. Okay, that thing with Danny DeVito, and they wanted it dubbed into Japanese with authentic Tokyo Japanese dialogue. Impossible. The Japanese spent tons of money. Disney spent tons of money to try to do it. They realized it cannot work. You cannot take comedy and dub it. You can't even subtitle comedy. It doesn't work. So, through the course of this exercise, they realized that the films that make money in Japan are action films. University translated Dolph Lundgren. Who the hell is that guy? A big star in Japan. His movies make tons of money. Easy to see.
Comprehend. Yeah.
Very easy.
No, you die.
That's the kind of stuff that is legitimate to take over there. It's not, terms of endearment or something like that, or, crimes of the heart. It's just, boom. It's just like, you're not going to get that kind of stuff over
How do
here.
they think you feel about Pat Labor?
Well, that's why stuff like Pad Labor and Bubblegum Crisis and all that stuff, Akira, is going to appeal to a very, very, very narrow market. You're not going to get a guy in, Columbus, Ohio, that's sitting on his couch eating a fish head sandwich with a bottle of beer, rolling over and saying, this is the greatest thing since sliced bread when he sees Akira. Well, honey, what the hell was that? It's not gonna do.
On the other hand, Min and Agacha might do a little better than that.
Yeah, and John's from Ohio. I like From Troy, California.
Is that the market you're going for? This guy sitting on the couch with a beer and this soda? Or you?
Ultimately, what you have to do is you have to.
Don't we get left out?
No. If it's done correctly, and I'm not saying anyone's doing it correctly or incorrectly, but if it is done correctly, then you reach the largest audience. And I'm not saying go to the lowest common denominator, because I can make my stuff unintelligent.
I mean, we already do that in America.
They do, but has anyone seen Robot Carnival, the theatrical version of it? In that film, you may not like what they did with the Japanese language, but if you see the presence sequence, that is incredibly sophisticated dialogue that comes out of that particular sequence, because the original Japanese was sophisticated on its own level. And if you listen to that, I mean, that's like very, very tough stuff. It's like an Alan Renee film or some very special piece of film being made. But if you also see Zillion, and the guy says, "You bastard, you shot my mother," it's, there's a difference. Zillion is made for guys that eat fish head sandwiches and drink beer, because it was made for that same.
Or at least their son.
Personality profile.
Yeah, the same type of guys that saw it in Japan. That was made for common mass audience in Japan. That wasn't made for guys to go sit in art museums and watch Zillion. Zillion were just guys that were flicking the theater. Oh, it could be Enos, it could be, Major Dad. Oh, it's Zillion. And they just watched. That's why it was on TV. And if you have pretensions about Japanese animation appearing as high art, forget it, because the majority of Japanese animation is made for the same type of guy, the mass audience in Japan.
I mean, there are the Angels Age.
Yeah, there are. They're really cool things like Robot Carnival, Wings Oniyamas, the Grave of the Firefly. That is art film. I mean, it is like cinema, comparable to anything you can see anywhere as cinema, fantastic cinema. And then 99% of it is just for boneheads. But no offense.
No, it's true. I mean, if you look at it, like, the OVAs have been so formalized in the last 5 years. I mean, it's a formula for almost all the OVAs that have come out. You know, rebellious kids, mecha, women,
Actually, it's funny that you mentioned that. We've got it coming up in our next issue. It's sort of coincidental timing. It's the standardized OAV plot chart.
Yeah.
Hey, it's going to be demon police officers, it's going to be this, it's going to be that. Okay, it's going to be young boy, young girl does. Okay, go to this. Okay, are they going to have to fight this bad guy, that bad guy? Where's the kid's girl? Go to this area. So those things.
It's one from column A, one from...
Yeah, no, it's absolutely true.
Approximately 34 minutes in, insert shower scene.
Exactly. That's the whole concept, and that's the whole nature of this, the ultimate essence of this debate, which is it high art, is it low art, is it no art, is it, you know, what is it, and how do you present it? It's pop culture. So, as pop culture, it has to go out fast. It has to go out as pop culture. It has to go out cheap. It has to go out in mass, and it has to strike a chord with everybody, and that's it. And that's when it'll happen. It happened in Robotech. Why did Robotech happen? If 14 guys sat in a room and watched Macross, Robotech would have never happened, and probably fandom as it is existing now would never be there, because most of you saw Robotech when you were growing up or just watching TV, and you thought, God, this is really cool. There's got to be something else there, and then you found out that God Basic ruined it, because then you found out that there were other things. There's Gundam, there's Kurtzayatra, there's you fill in the blank, and everyone went their merry way, and fandom became as powerful as it is today. But however powerful it is, it will never get up to another level until another thing hits the mass market.
Very true.
It's not going to happen with video. It'll be a placebo, and you're pushing it. But until we get into a mass market level, ridiculous. It won't work. I'm trying to get to the point that I can sell zillion pages for $7.95 a page. That's my ultimate goal. And if I could show you my 5-year business plan, that is the goal. Everything that we put out, I want to put out cheap as possible, because I don't want guys to duplicate it. I'd rather have them buy the tape than buy a blank tape, one. And I want to get it so that everybody can have an opportunity to buy it. Buy it at a drugstore, buy it in a gas station, buy it in Sears, you know. And the whole point is it's volume. And when it becomes mass market volume, then it's happening. And it won't happen as long as there's no awareness of what this material is. It's great. As good as it is, as cool as these people are, it is popular entertainment. That's what it is. And it has to be for a popular audience.
Okay, we've got time for one more question. So,
And I don't want to answer.
You in the back, sir.
Okay, I was just thinking for a while, considering the sort of art fandom type crowd in Japan and the United States, do you think there's a significant difference in sophistication between the two, and does this cause any problems? Like,
No, you're all insane.
You guys were talking about you couldn't really make a major theatrical release here with subtitles where you could put it on television. But in Japan, take a look at something like Gunhead, where significant parts of it that were critical of the plot were in English. They were made that way with Japanese subtitles.
Well, do you think that Gunhead was successful?
Yeah, Gunhead was actually a big disappointment.
Gunhead was in the crapper. It just went boom. And the thing that's interesting is the guy that was the lead actor was the Tom Cruise of Japan, if you want to put it that way. It's like if Tom Cruise made Macross, something like that.
And as for subtitles being effective in the U.S., well, look at Dances with Wolves.
It happens. La Femme Nikita is the great film.
Yeah, and also the Castle Cagliostro is doing remarkable. My associate didn't want to release that film in the United States in a broad way. I had to beg to get this film out subtitled. He didn't want it to go out subtitled. Everywhere it's playing, it's selling out because it's a great film. And subtitled films do work. And I'm not against subtitles. I have absolutely nothing against subtitles in the way that they're intended to be used. But in popular entertainment, it's the quick fix. It's the popular entertainment, it's the quick fix. I am going to put them on subtitle in what I call a connoisseur's edition for the people that don't want the quick fix. For the guys that want to, bathe themselves in the traditions of, fandom and the genealogy of what's gone on before. And that's, so then you're going to, kill two birds with one stone.
Okay, one more quick comment from over there, and then we'll just have final religious comments from the panel.
On a last note, I'd like to know that for the 90 TV series that you want to do, will the voice for Captain Nemo be familiar?
Oh, no. The voice for Captain Nemo will not be the voice of Blowball. No. What I'm trying to do in this particular thing, if we do it the right way, I think, is we're going to find the origins of where these people came from. If Captain Nemo was originally an Indian Raja that was displaced because of political circumstances, he's going to talk as though he were an Indian Raja.
He's an Atlantean.
It's going to backfire on you.
I don't think so.
It's going to backfire
I don't think
on
so.
you. You're going to get the Bianoids, and it's what you wanted to be a good singer.
No, I don't think so.
It could be simpler.
It'll be simple. It's not going to be so odd. They're not going to sound like, Sid Caesar or something like that, speaking...
That's what RoboCop was.
Well, that was because that was a comedy designed as such and done as a political statement, as a comedy. I didn't want to do it that way. You have this attitude that you think that I'm not in touch with reality.
You have a different reality than I do.
Then that's probably true. So everyone's different, So far, that film has been very popular. It's been the most popular section of the film. And
did you get permission to change the order?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes, and I also got permission to change the end, so I put the whole film thing together. And when I put it on video, I'm going to change the order again. Okay? Because when it was released in Japan, it was not ever released theatrically like in a theatrical film. When it was done, everything was released independent. And I asked Kazafumi Nomura, do you have a preference of how you wanted these films released? No. Is there a preferred list? No. Can I do it this way? Yes. Would you prefer it this way? Dealer's choice. Figure it out. Do it the way you want. And I did. Okay? So you can rest assured.
On record, and somebody will write a book with all of your quotations.
Okay, last comments from the panel.
Well, I just want to thank everyone for coming out, and I think that the main point to stress is to support U.S. Manga Corps, U.S. renditions, Anime Go, and Streamline, and buy legitimate product and not bootleg material, whether it's subtitled or not. Check your local listings for where the new Streamline stuff is circulating, and that would be my message to you.
Buy the book.
Okay. Okay. The only thing I would say is that I think that everybody here should feel really proud. All the people that were the first generation of fans, second generation of fans, third generation and on. To bring Japanese animation fandom to this level. Somebody would have told me this in '86 that we'd all be here and the guests of honor would be here and we'd be interacting like this. I wouldn't believe it. So I think everybody deserves to give themselves a round of applause.
Yeah.
I think basically what's been said before is that's pretty much how I feel. Is that we are all trying to achieve the same thing ultimately. And that is to get anime popularized in this country and in a way that whatever sort of anime it is, in a way that's appropriate to us. And personally, this has helped me to see that we're not really all that far apart ultimately. Getting to actually see the competition as human beings. I only knew them by name and reputation. Maybe it's invited them.
John, thank you for your support.
And I guess my final comment will be that I just wish somebody from the media was here so we could see it on TV. Carl Machek, Faces, Fans, and Lives, film at 11. Thank you for your support.
I want to ask a question about your tape, actually.
Are you in as much pain as I am? Pain, agony. I'm feeling.
Are either of you two running an SDAC?
No.
No,
I'm afraid not.
Okay. We didn't get anything in the any official concept here, but I'm one of the staff, and so we'd like